So, when you think of Vietnam's history, what's the first thing that pops in your head? For a lot of us, it's probably war or struggle, right? But what if I told you that's only a sliver of the real story? That for centuries, Vietnam was actually one of the wealthiest and most sophisticated nations in all of Asia. Today, we're going to dig into that forgotten history. So, was Vietnam really one of Asia's richest nations? We're about to find out. We're going to uncover this incredible story of prosperity and power, a story that's been kind of buried by time and conflict. And as we do, you'll start to see a really fascinating pattern emerge. Yeah, this quote right here, it just nails it. It's the perfect summary for what we're talking about today. It's this powerful cycle, incredible highs followed by these devastating lows, and then this amazing ability to bounce back. That resilience, it's really the defining feature here, a pattern that just keeps repeating over 4,000 years. All right, so to really get a grip on this cycle, we're going to walk through 5 key periods. We'll kick things off with the ancient foundations of wealth, then see what happens during a time of resilience under domination. After that, we'll look at the rise of a true medieval powerhouse, explore the weird paradox of civil war, and wrap it all up with an empire's end. All right, let's jump right in. We're diving into that first big boom cycle, and we're going way, way back, thousands of years. And the story of Vietnam's incredible wealth, it doesn't start with gold or jewels. Nope, it starts with rice. Okay, just take a look at this. On the left, you've got this amazing pottery from the Phung Nguyen culture, crafted way back around 2000 BC. Now, to give you some perspective, a similar level of skill, of pure craftsmanship, didn't show up in neighboring Thailand for another 1,700 years. Let that sink in. This wasn't just some developing culture. They were ridiculously advanced for their time. So you gotta be asking, how did they get so far ahead of the curve? Well, the secret? It's in the rice paddies. You see, ancient Vietnamese people absolutely mastered wet rice agriculture. They created this huge surplus of food. And think about it, when you're not constantly worried about where your next meal is coming from, you suddenly have time to invent, to make art, to build a really complex society. That food surplus, that was the economic engine driving everything. And all that extra time and resources, it led to incredible things like these, the legendary Dong Son drums. And these are so much more than just pretty objects. No way. They're hard proof of seriously advanced metalworking, a complex social structure, and a society so wealthy it could pour resources into creating breathtaking art. These drums, they are the ultimate symbol of that first golden age. And all that wealth, it didn't just go into art. It fueled some amazing military innovation. Take the Kaluuya Citadel. This thing wasn't just a wall. It was a brilliant, sophisticated defensive system. See that spiral design? It was basically a giant trap. It was built to funnel invaders in, slow them down, and totally exhaust them before they even got close to the center. This idea, defense in depth, was literally centuries ahead of its time. It shows you they were thinking on a whole different strategic level. But you know how it goes. Every golden age has to end. And for Vietnam, this first amazing boom was followed by a truly devastating bust. We're talking about a 1,000-year period of foreign rule that would push the Vietnamese people right to the absolute limit. 1,000 years. Just try to wrap your head around that. It's almost impossible. For 10 full centuries, Vietnam's wealth was just siphoned away. Its resources were taken, its culture was suppressed, but it was also an era of non-stop resistance. You had hero after hero rising up, trying to reclaim what had been stolen. So the big question is, how on earth did they survive 1,000 years of that without being completely absorbed? Well, they came up with this brilliant survival strategy. They'd look at their rulers and take the things that were useful, administrative systems, new technologies, bits of philosophy. But then, and this is the crucial part, they'd Vietnamized it. They bent and shaped all these outside influences until they fit their own unique culture. So they didn't come out the other side as a copy. They emerged as something new, something stronger, and even more distinct than before. And then, after that entire millennium, they did it. They won back their independence. And what happened next is, well, it's just incredible. They didn't just recover from 1,000 years of domination. No, they shot forward into an even bigger boom period, creating what was basically a medieval economic powerhouse. And to help you picture the scale of what we're talking about, think about it like this. Today, you've got hubs like Singapore or Dubai that use their resources like oil and their strategic location to become global trade centers, right? Well, 13th century Dai Viet was doing the same thing. They were leveraging their gold mines, that huge rice surplus, and their amazing craftsmanship from a perfect spot right on the maritime trade routes. It became this buzzing international hub for wealth and commerce. And you could see the signs of this wealth absolutely everywhere. For the first time in a long time, the Vietnamese controlled their own gold, silver, and copper mines. The capital city, Thanh Long, which is modern-day Hanoi, by the way, and the Van Don seaport were just jam-packed with merchants from all over Asia. I mean, the economy was so ridiculously strong that historical records say even common people were walking around in clothes decorated with gold. Incredible. And here's where all that money really mattered. This incredible wealth funded what is, honestly, one of the greatest military achievements in all of world history. You've heard of the Mongol Empire, right? The biggest land empire ever. They invaded Dai Viet not once, not twice, but 3 separate times at the absolute peak of their power. And you know what happened? 3 times, they were sent packing. That was only possible because Dai Viet had the cash and the organization to back up its army. Just amazing. Okay, so after another shorter invasion by the Ming dynasty, the next cycle kicks off. But this one's different. It's not a straightforward boom or bust. It's this long, drawn-out period of civil war that, and this is the weird part, actually led to incredible development and expansion. A total paradox. Yeah, think about it. Normally, civil war just bleeds a nation dry, right? But here, something completely unexpected happened. The rivalry between the 2 ruling families, the Trin in the north and the Nguyen in the south, it created this intense competitive pressure cooker. They had different things going for them. The north had the massive population and fertile land. The south, meanwhile, was all about foreign trade and expansion. And this constant competition, it forced both sides to innovate like crazy, to expand their economies just to stay ahead of the other guy. The result? They accidentally ended up driving the entire country's development forward. Wild. All right, let's move on to the final chapter in this epic 4,000-year story of feudal Vietnam. We're talking about the country's unification under one final dynasty, the Nguyen. And sadly, this is also the beginning of the end for this long cycle of homegrown prosperity. So after all those centuries of thriving as this international trade hub, the Nguyen dynasty made a decision that would change everything. They became fearful of foreign influence, worried about invasion, and so they turned inward. They literally sealed the ports and shut the country's doors to the outside world. In one move, they basically slammed the brakes on the very engine that had driven their prosperity for generations. And our source material puts it so perfectly. The real tragedy here is that they didn't fall because they were weak. They fell because they were playing by the old rules on a chessboard where the game itself had changed. You see, the Nguyen dynasty was powerful, no doubt, but it was isolated, and by the 1800s, with the rise of industrial Europe, the rules of global power had been completely rewritten. Vietnam's strategy of looking inward, something that once brought them stability, had suddenly become a fatal flaw. And that leaves us with this final, really important question to think about, because this whole story, this forgotten history of Vietnam's wealth, it isn't just about the past. It's a timeless lesson, right? It's all about adaptation. It shows us that strength, wealth, resilience, none of that is permanent. It all depends on one thing: understanding the world around you and being ready to change when the rules of the game inevitably change.